match between Montserrat Garcia and Ari Lax.
And here we go. So a fine start here for Garcia. 2 copies of Doom Foretold, which is the card you want in this strategy against Human Reclamation.
Yeah, having 2 copies of Teferi Time Raveler is one of the great ways to bridge the gap against the namesake from these Team of Reclamation decks. You kind of shut off the double spelling that those decks get to do a little bit ahead of schedule.
And we'll see the first copy of Teferi goes on the stack. Does Ari have a suitable response? Negate will trade with the first copy.
One of 2 main deck copies from Lax.
An Agonizing Remorse. A nice pick-up there for Garcia, letting her know if the coast is clear, giving her the information to work with.
And here she's just weighing if you want to try and pave the way for the Teferi or slam it before Wilderness Reclamation comes down.
Or with Agonizing Remorse, you could even let the Reclamation resolve and then try to gobble it up with a Doom Foretold.
Ooh, that's a good point.
And we do see a copy of Reclamation in Ari's hand, along with 2 Shark Typhoons, 2 Uros, and the Expansion Explosion to pair with the Reclamation. So a stacked hand here for Lax. Let's see how Garcia decides to try and poke a hole in it.
And this hand actually shows a little bit of why Teferi wouldn't even be as great if there wasn't a counterspell. Shark Typhoon is one of the perfect foils to a card like Teferi, because it doesn't actually involve casting a spell and gives a body that can pressure the loyalty on that Teferi.
And Heartless Actor, a nice way of trading with a Shark token, just helping to protect your Planeswalker, even if you're down a card in the process.
Yeah, there are so many incremental advantages with all of these cards, be it Teferi, Doom Foretold, Yorion, etc., that losing out on a couple of exchanges is something that you can recover from if you're in Garcia's position.
Omen of the Sea off top for Garcia, and we'll see if this Teferi... we know that one's going to resolve. We know that one can bounce a Shark token.
Really looking for that second blue source to get Narset online. This is something that we've seen some of the ramp players utilize as well, as this almost prison element of having Narset Porter of Veils and Teferi Time Raveler against these these Team of Reclamation strategies.
And there is Castle Foundress off the top, so Narset Porter of Veils can join the party here, that dynamic duo of Narset and Teferi Time Raveler. But it looks like we have other plans for this turn. Omen of the Sea, we're going to start off with here. Sending 2 lands to the bottom. And picking up an Eliminate, which, again, doesn't have many targets in this matchup. This isn't what it's intended for. Can pick off any Sharks that are trying to chip away at Teferi Time Raveler.
Yeah, being able to knock off Sharks as well as Uro is something that ends up playing a lot better than one would expect.
And for Ari, when your opponent is not taking this chance to put Yorion into their hand, does that tell you something? Does that guarantee that your Shark is not long for this world?
At that point, I would assume it was something to that effect, right? There's a point where you know that your opponent that there's something afoot, or they're just trying to scry with their Omen of the Sea.
Second copy of Narset off the top there for Garcia. We'll see what this one can unearth for her. Would love to find a follow-up copy of Teferi Time Raveler. Instead finds a pair of Enchantments, Oath of Kaya and Disinformation Campaign, which you alluded to before.
And that Disinformation Campaign is a way to really start whittling away at the cards that a card like Explosion can produce. Narset is something that really makes it harder to catch back up or get out from under the discard power of something like Disinformation Campaign into Blink Disinformation Campaign.
And instead of, we couldn't cast out this turn, remember, limited on blue sources. We do have 3 mana left over to pop Yorion into our hand. Now Fable Passage for Ari Lax. Digging up an island. Wilderness Reclamation would be highly relevant again now that Teferi is gone.
Lax presumably looking to make something happen here, but Uro is going to be a little bit hard to get going with this Narset on the battlefield.
Yeah, typically you can force their hand with Uro just by recasting it, drawing a card in the process, and then even if it's removed, your upper card, you can now work towards escaping it again in a few turns, but Narset really helping to make that a worse exchange.
Ooh.
And we are just... Wow, we're just using our Explosion to kill Narset. No cards drawn for Ari Lax, and now a second copy of Narset finds Agonizing Remorse.
And this is exactly what these decks are trying to capitalize on, or the spot in the metagame that they want to be able to attack. It's this prison element of these planeswalkers that's just trying to slam the door shut.
And this is another thing in the metagame we're trying to capitalize on. 2-minute copies of either cast with 0 targets in Garcia 75.
Ari Lax has 3 cards in hand, none of which have text.
Emma, excuse me, the 95 here for Garcia. Let's not sell that deck short.
Oh, absolutely. Yorion having the ability to just blink all of these value enchantments, Omen of the Sea, Disinformation Campaign, these prison planeswalkers, cannot be understated.
And Ari Lax really out of options here, it looks like. Just, are we looking at the same sequence? Was the explosion fired off to kill Narset?
Yeah, draw 1 card. That's 3 of Ari's explosions. And
there's the Fairy Time Raveler.
That's so rough for Ari.
I guess now he knows what he's discarding to Disinformation Campaign. And also to the next Disinformation Campaign.
Garcia holding on to these Doom Foretold, saving them for a copy of Uro.
And there it is. Speak of the Giant.
And with Ari's mana base, that Uro is not coming back until next turn. The old Blast Zone Basic Mountain combination.
We are finally drawing some cards now that Narset's out of the picture. And Petty Theft, it looks like just bouncing to Fairy Time Raveler.
That would imply the other copy of Negate is waiting in the wings for Ari.
I think that's a fine trade here for Garcia.
Oh, maybe not.
And now we can even try to stick this Doom Foretold. If we want to. Or we can just bounce Uro. Since we know that that one isn't coming back anytime soon.
Grind him to dust. That is the name of the game for Garcia here. Looking for a copy of Dance of the Mance to actually slam the door shut and win this game.
His Omen of the Sea, followed up by Golden Egg.
And that 8th mana is the sweet spot for Dance of the Mance to actually just produce an army of 4/4s and close the door.
With what we have on the board, that copy of Yorion that's already in the hand might just be good enough.
It's not far away, that's for sure.
It's the biggest Mold Drifter I have ever seen. We even have this Heartless Act that's been in play for many turns now in case there's an Uro or another Shark Typhoon. Also, Congress Death has a lot of those covered too.
It feels like the relevant cards that are still at play here, Garcia just has covered several different ways. Ari is trying to assemble a combination of Wilderness Reclamation plus an Answer to the Fairy plus the 4th copy of Explosion to actually just deal a ton of damage at once.
So by my count, we have at least 4 different ways that we can contain that Nightpack Amateur.
Minimum.
Or we could just decide, hey, let's kick off by flickering 5 things. I'm going to draw 2 cards and you'll discard a card. And then I'm going to scry 2 and draw a card. And then I'll scry 2 and draw a card.
Alright, slow down for me.
That sounds like a card that could be printed in 2019 or 2020.
But what's the evoke cost?
I'm not sure you get an evoke cost on this one. I think that's a little greedy.
Kind of a ripoff, but okay. Oh, and there was no instep stop. Oh, no. Oh,
Tragic.
No. Okay. Luckily, High Banana Fish has to discard 2 cards on instep, or it would have automatically discarded that Heartless Act. Oh, close call from Montserrat Garcia here.
We lose one of our many, many copies of Doom Foretold.
Well, one of the things we've seen time and time again from Team of Reclamation is if you just give them 1 turn of breathing room, that can be it. That can close the door and end the game, no matter how far behind the Team of Reclamation deck seems.
So the Ambusher is in. Now Uro looking to join the fray. But we can mob those up very easy between Heartless Act and Doom Foretold and Elspeth Conquers Death. And there's Wilderness Reclamation. Won't get any immediate use of that thanks to Teferi.
And this is the spot where Lax is just so far behind that Garcia's just going to get to check all of these permanents that Ari has developed.
There's even another copy of Narset, Powder Veils. Gonna bounce Uro back to the hand. Narset ensures that that's not doing anything, and then Elspeth Conqueror's Death can take care of the Wilderness Reclamation. Agonizing Remorse just sees 2 copies of Uro for Ari Lax. And hey, why Elspeth Conqueror's Death when you can Doom Foretold? And have another 3 mana left over.
Doom Foretold is actually a form of pressure here, which is the big thing.
Attack for 4. Maybe
there's
play on
also
Narset.
relevance in diversifying mana costs in the face of that Blast Zone that Lax has hiding out.
Absolutely. And Yorion with Teferi sets up a loop of sorts where every turn you can bounce your Yorion, replay it, get all the value out of your Yorion, and then also reset Teferi to set up exactly the same sequence on the following turn.
And this game has just been the textbook definition of what these decks are trying to win with, and how we've seen Garcia incorporate a lot of the anti-teamer tools that we've seen from the Bant decks, the Azorius decks of the format, into that Orzhov, Yorion, Doom Foretold deck that we saw in week 1 of the seasonal championship qualifiers.
And Ether Gods for Garcia, a lot better for her than it is for Ari Lax in this matchup.
Oh my god. Are you ready to vomit value? So Legend Rule Yorion.
This is
keep
beautiful.
The old one. Blink the old one, which will then trigger again.
So we get more Omen of the Sea triggers, more Golden Egg triggers. But also you can contain some of that, but not nearly enough.
And Garcia happy to take some lands here just to have cards to throw away to a discard step.
And Brazen Borrower finally makes an appearance.
Does it though?
Well, momentarily. And Ari fighting the good fight. But this is so much to work through, and Aethergast does have a valid target in this matchup finally.
And you can see that Lax is really trying to do everything that he can to stay in this. A big explosion could swing things. And he has QQ'd. He floated 3 mana with his Wilderness Reclamation.
That Aethergast may be looking a little hasty in the face of that Wilderness Reclamation. We'll see if Ari does have the follow-up.
Oh my god.
Wow, okay, so that's a big explosion.
That's Ari's 4th explosion, though. He's going to have to win a heads-up game of Magic against this Esper Doom Foretold deck. No more explosions. Gonna have to get there with Nightpack Ambusher, Uro, Counterspells, and a Dream.
And lest we forget, Golden Egg is a food, sacrifices itself for 3 life there. And now Duress plus Agonizing Remorse can pick a hand this redraw hand, and there it is. We are just running Ari out of win conditions.
Of those cards he drew, 3 of the best ones were Ketria Triomes.
And look at that, there's Dance of the Mans, finally.
Garcia finally playing faster, really looking to just get this game over. They know it's effectively over. They just need to close the door, use as little time on the clock to do so.
I can imagine these matches going very long. And I can't afford to waste any seconds if this goes to a game 3.
Doom Foretold finally going down for Garcia. Battlefield is just Yorion, Knight, Teferi on 5, goes in for 6, Lax to 4.
We'll cycle a Triome. But it's unclear what we're even digging for at this point.
Typhoon?
I guess, yeah. Although, does Ari have any Shock Typhoons left? Have we burned through all of those too?
Well, that's hard to say. What's not hard to say is that this Dance of the Mance from Garcia is going to be for the high score. Really just a pick of the litter here. Oh, it's resolving.
I have missed watching this. There we go. So Montserrat Garcia takes game 1 against Team Reclamation with Espadune Foretold, up a game in what looks to be on paper a tough matchup, but one which you can see a lot of her main deck choices are made with this matchup in mind.
Yeah, very few cards in the sideboard are things that she's really that worried about bringing in here, with most of the main deck slanted towards what is looking to be roughly half the field here. She knew where she was shooting her shot, and it feels like she's kind of landed on target here.
Yeah, so these things like 4 main deck duress is at the cost of a card like Shadow the Sky, which starts in her sideboard, but against a field which is heavily biased towards Team Reclamation, that's just playing your odds correctly. You know, you want to be metagamed against that and against the aggro decks. Maybe you take your licks in game 1, but then you have the cards you can board in after sideboarding.
Right, and this is the kind of event where we'll say a middling 4-3 record is going to get you some money. So even if you kind of crash and burn a little bit, you're going to be fine. But the top of that, if you come in first place, you get so much more than players in the top 32. So playing towards that top finish instead is going to reward you more. And that's why we see Garcia shooting her shot this weekend.
Absolutely, and we mulligan a 6-land, 7-card hand into a somewhat awkward 6, the old Plains Island mono black land mana base for Garcia to kick off game 2.
Really hoping to find just another blue source off the top to be able to have this Aether Gust into Narset 1-2 punch.
Ooh, but Agonizing Remorse, that's a nice turn to play as a replacement.
Yeah, that plays.
That gets negated. So nice of Ben to negate that otherwise would have been used on the Narset or on something else.
Yeah, hard to complain too much about that exchange if you're in Garcia's seat, especially when you know there isn't anything super punishing that can happen on turn 3.
Yeah, a little unfortunate that we don't have a good follow-up on 3. Can't even attempt to run the risk with Narset Powder Veils. But we do have Fable Passage here as a second blue source on turn 4.
And we may see a spot where Garcia's in the unenviable position of just kind of having to jam into Lax's counterspells until he doesn't have one. All of these cards are kind of clunky sorcery speed cards, so playing some sort of flash game just isn't doable.
And we see Ari Lax just playing out the 3-1 Brazen Borrow, not waiting to get any use out of the Petty Theft. He knows that trying to outgrind this Doom Foretold deck is a losing proposition. He's just going to apply pressure, back it up with counterspells, try and get this game over with quickly.
And you can even see here, this Doom Foretold really not looking to do too awful much here. This is just a 4-mana destroy target creature.
And Mystical Dispute is going to stop even that from happening. 5th land here from Ari Lax. And a 5th land for Garcia, who was missing a second white source for Elspeth Conqueror's Death, potentially. And we'll see that attempted.
And this is just that jam play pattern that Garcia is playing towards. Eventually, Lax will miss, theoretically.
Yeah, second dispute tags the Elspeth Conqueror's Death. And Garcia already down to 9. Teferi Time Raveler can do some amount of work, but then that one also has to resolve. We've burned through 2 mystical disputes, but there's a 3rd for Ari Lax. And Garcia staring defeat in the face here in game 2.
Ooh, and a Shark Typhoon getting cycled is going to line up so well against this Aether Gust that's just rotting in Garcia's hand.
Shaving a whole turn off the clock, forcing Garcia to have 2 answers, which isn't possible, especially with this draw. And yeah, a quick game 2 after a marathon game 1.
And in a lot of ways, that felt like something akin to almost a Delver strategy, where we saw a 3-1 flyer come down quick. This is your Vendilion Click, your Insect Elaboration, what have you. And then Lax just cast Mana Leak after Mana Leak until you just get to take a turn off from doing that, make a fresh 3-3 flyer, and make it to where your opponent can't actually come back from that.
And that's part of why you see cards like Harlasack and Eliminate stay in Garcia's deck, which is kind of forced upon her anyway by the fact that it's an 80 card deck and you can't board out all of the cards that maybe are a little suboptimal. But you also need ways to tag cards like Brazen Borrow or Shark Typhoon when Ari chooses to get aggressive, which he will, because that's the best way to contain your Planeswalkers and to get ahead out in front of something like Doom Foretold.
And these players loading into the third game. Garcia's going to be on the play for this one. So game one, we saw Garcia really just grind Lax to dust and come in at the last second with Dance of the Manse, where the returned permanents being 4/4s didn't matter. They were effectively just slight burn spells because there were so many Doom Fortolds. And that last game, Ari just got out ahead and played a sort of protect the queen strategy with a Brazen Borrower as a creature, not even using the Petty Theft version. That just tells me that Garcia needs to make sure that she has those early cards to actually get out on the battlefield and start developing her board.
Okay, and this is a nice sequence too. Turn 1 Duress into Golden Egg into Disinformation Campaign.
That's a 1-2-3 curve, and it's pretty nice in a matchup that feels like it can go grindy.
And that Duress sees a land light, but an otherwise strong hand for Ari.
Those are 2 tap lands, so it wouldn't shock me if she ends up going for the Mystical Dispute here.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we see. You know, potentially, she'll stand on the gate for turn 3. We can stick that Disinformation Campaign. Ooh, all of that's a Fairy Time Raveler. How about that one, Emma?
Oh, Ari rips the shock land to have the negate for the Teferi if she chooses to go for it. She knows it's there, so I don't think she's just going to jam this Disinformation Campaign, instead serving as bait for that negate.
Yeah, this is a great way to test the waters, see if Ari is willing to spend his negate here. Decide just to cycle Shark Typhoon, not even making a shark, just to maybe have a better card to discard. Doesn't want to spend his negate on that unless he absolutely has to.
He knows land drops are the name of the game at this phase, because if we start seeing something where Garcia wants to blink that Disinformation Campaign, further shred Lax's hand with things like Duress, like Agonizing Remorse that we've seen her do for 2 rounds now, then just putting your cards on the battlefield is the best way to counteract that.
And so instead of running Teferi into negate, we're going to put Yorion into our hand instead, and then Ari Lax is going to cycle another Shark Typhoon. We'll actually get a 1/1 shark out of the deal this time.
And this Yorion is something that can't be negated, so it might actually be the way that Garcia can weave through the conditional permission that Lax has.
I think the move might honestly be just to tap out for Yorion here. As risky as that sounds, Ari has 4 disputes that can tag it. You know that his negates can't. We've burned through 1 dispute already. Maybe it's time.
Sometimes you just have to introduce your opponent to the difference between jelly and jam.
And Garcia running through the options, and yeah, here it is. Yorion Sky Nomad on the stack.
No Mystical Dispute from Lax. It comes down.
There it is. Ari knew it was a possibility, but nothing he could do about it. So that's going to draw 2 cards, force Ari to discard 1.
And at this point, Garcia is really hoping to find some better reactive materials, some way to force that Time Raveler through, or something to check this Night Pack Ambusher that comes down from Lax on Garcia's instep.
Now there's Elspeth Conqueror. That's a start, and the Ether Gas can also mess with that Ambusher. But if Ari has a way to clear this Yorion out of the way...
Well, that's a pass of the turn and a wolf for Lax, but a Yorion untap for Garcia.
And the sizing of the Yorion is surprisingly relevant here. A 4/5, breaking the 4/4 Night Pack Ambusher. And we're going to lead with Ether Gust to see what's up. Does Ari want to negate this?
This is Garcia just trying to pave the way for this Teferi.
Ari thinking about it. That's fine. And so now do you just force Ari to spend his mana on the negate? Because that's going to negate something at some point, you have to imagine.
I imagine it comes down to how much Garcia values this Doom Foretold. And it depends on what you think Lax's plan is. If you don't think Lax is going to be investing a ton in things like Wilderness Reclamation, I can see just jamming Doom Foretold. But the nice thing about holding it, like we've seen Garcia do before just passing back, is now you can cast Time Raveler and Doom Foretold in the same untap step, which is going to actually tax Lax's mana in a big way.
So yet another land for Garcia, who is more flooded than she would like at this point. Would love to have some more action. Okay, set 1. Here's Doom Foretold. That one resolves. Nothing for it to gobble up right now for Ari Lax, who, if he's so inclined, can just, that's going to just give Garcia the minimum rebate on the Doom Foretold.
How do we turn this into a pun with disinformation campaign? Doom
I'm sure there's a way.
Disinformation campaign. All right, it's Ari Lax's turn. We're out of this joke. Let's go.
Hey, look, this match is long enough. We'll have some time to workshop that, but we can improve it.
All right.
And
well,
yeah, just this draw go pattern now. That Lax didn't want to feed the Nightpack Ambusher into the Doom Foretold. We let that one just run through its turn cycle, and so now action back on Garcia.
Is good though.
Definitely, and Agonizing Remorse off the top.
Okay, this is one of the ways that Garcia can look to pave the way for this incredibly crucial Teferi.
So there's Negate, and now here's Teferi. Or is it?
Oh, the 6th
yes,
land. It lets it come down through a mystical dispute if that's all Lax has.
This has to be another Negate. Are we going to see Ambusher in response? Yes, we are.
Oh, it's just the Ambusher.
So now we have a lot of different tokens we can bounce with the Teferi, or we can just send the Ambusher right back where it came from. Could even take it up as well.
I imagine we're going to see it go after the 4/4 army, because then if Lax wants to kill this Teferi, he's going to have to trade Nightpack Ambusher for it, because Yorion could just block the Nightpack Ambusher for free, and that is a horrible exchange. If your plan is to just try to leverage the power of your creatures.
So here's Uro. More than enough fuel to escape that one if we find the 7th land. But Garcia has that covered. Has the perfect response to it in Elspeth Conquers Death. And here we go. Everything at Teferi as you predicted. Yorion gets to eat Nightpack Ambusher. The Ambusher is...
Garcia weighing if you want to go ahead and have this night trade for the Wolf, because once the Ambusher dies, it'll go down to a 2/2 and it'll just be a clean trade.
And that looks like the move. So Yorion now facing up against a shark in the sky. 2nd Elspeth Conquers Death for Garcia.
And this is one of the attractive things about Lax's line there and offering that Nightpack Ambusher is there's nothing good for an Elspeth to hit.
Right, we might be inclined just to run it out so that we can start building towards that 2nd and 3rd chapter. And here's Mystical Dispute, and we can just pay. Is there another dispute in the pipeline? Yes, there is. But Ari can't feel great about that exchange.
Yeah, that's a situation where it's fueling this Uro in Lax's graveyard, but unless that Uro found something incredible, this Elspeth Conquers Death is going to check it immediately.
And there is Uro coming back for Ari Lax. If he has found a Negate, maybe off that Uro, this could be a good turn cycle for him.
Well, Garcia has 10 mana and 2 ECDs.
And the first ECD sticks. And we also picked up another copy of Yorion Sky Nomad, which Ari had to burn those 2 disputes on last turn.
But with this Castle Vantress in play, it wouldn't shock me if Garcia just leans into that.
Yeah, why bother? Get the free value from that, and then maybe you can straight into another high-impact Yorion target to follow up with.
You also have the incredibly attractive option of just letting this Elspeth Conquers Death go to Chapter 2 next turn, and if Ari Lax plays anything else, it's just feeding it to when you blink this Yorion, which then blinks this Elspeth Conquers Death, and so on.
There is a Blast Zone, which can creep its way up to 5 over time. And we do have to be wary about an eventual explosion as Ari accumulates more resources.
Ooh, how about a Kaya Orzhov Usurper?
Okay.
That's
clock. Interesting, and it looks like we're keeping both of these.
What are the odds that this Kaya is literally just a 2-turn clock?
Yeah, that Kaya may be able to one-shot Ari Lax.
All right, and we see Garcia.
Okay, so maybe this is what Garcia's going for. If we're keeping the Eliminate to stop the Shark from tagging the Kaya. Or, hey, Kaya can just exile the Shark. That has 0 converted mana cost.
Look, you don't bring Esper Doomfortold to a tournament if you ever plan to take a game action that will put the game closer to ending. You are here to grind. You have a plan, and you will respect that plan.
You take game actions so that you can take more game actions. That's the name of the game here.
You get it. And speaking of not blinking this Elspeth Conqueror's Death with the second Yorion trigger, just to bring back another Yorion and force Ari's hand at cracking a Blast Zone on 5.
And this is the same line that you mentioned before of threatening blinking the first Yorion, which then blinks everything else for a second set of triggers. Look at these cards shuffling between zones. It's so beautiful.
This disinformation campaign has really just shredded Lax's hands. I've been very impressed with that card's impact on this game. It's so much better than Guild Globe or something.
I think there are many things that are so much better than Guild Globe, but that is a factual statement, yes.
Right, I'm just speaking to a card that we've seen Garcia incorporate into the deck over something that was sort of a sacred cow in the Doom Foretold archetype before this event. This shows some real knowledge of the cards that Garcia has chose to include in this archetype that are a bit off the wall and really paying off. This is why it looks like Garcia may just be about to move to 5-1.
Duress tags in the gate. We're building our own divination with Teferi and Golden Egg. And now Kaya setting up for an ultimate. Building towards that game-winning play. There's even a Narset Power Veils. But yeah, we're now forcing that Blast Zone to deal with Teferi and Kaya, which means this Yorion is also a one-turn clock. The squeeze is on for Ari Lax. What can he come up with?
It's hard to imagine what he can find off the top here that will fix all of these problems.
And he doesn't find it.